Hey everyone, welcome to GenTech. Thank you for joining me today. GenTech is a new webinar series that I'm starting that focuses on genealogy and technology, specifically looking at technology tools that you might not think about in the genealogy realm, but definitely have applicability in this industry. So we're going to be looking at tools that make it easier for you to manage your research, for you to collaborate with others, and also to share your research in cool, innovative new ways. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first episode on Trello. During this presentation, I'm going to go through what Trello is exactly. We're also going to go through a little bit of information about the project management workflow that Trello uses. I'll talk about the importance of managing your family history research. Then I'll go over some features of Trello that could be applied to organizing your family history research. And then I'll jump into a demo to demonstrate those features for you. So Trello describes itself as a flexible and visual way to manage your projects. So basically, it's a project management tool that allows you to see all of your to-do items in one space. It utilizes the Kanban framework, and it allows you to organize your projects using cards, lists, and boards. Boards are essentially your main big project that you're working on. Lists are the different statuses for your tasks that you're working on, like to do or in progress or completed. And cards are your to-do items. Trello is free for its basic features. So basically, you can use Trello to keep track of your research projects, organize them based on progress and priority, collaborate with others. You can actually assign specific cards or tasks to other people in Trello. You can make notes on your progress by writing comments. You can create checklists. You can also associate your research task with documents, such as images or PDFs, video, whatever. So a couple slides ago, I mentioned this thing called Kanban. It's kind of a weird word, but Kanban is actually a thing in the technology and business industries. It's a type of project management framework that's usually used in agile software development. So to not get too much into the nitty-gritty of agile software development, it's basically a process that software developers use to create products very quickly. So it's a very iterative process where basically you have your tasks lined up, you work on them, you produce your product, you receive feedback, you work on them, you produce your product, and you receive feedback, and you just iteratively go over and over and over until the product is perfect. So Kanban allows you to visualize progress to see what items are in their to-do status, what items are currently in progress, and what items are done. Kanban also helps you manage workflow and identify obstacles quickly. So since you're seeing all of these to-do items laid out in one board, you can very quickly see, okay, these items over here are my to-do items. I need to make sure that these get done. Or these items over here are currently on hold. I might need to check these out and see what's going on. Where am I running into obstacles or bottlenecks? You can also use it to manage capacity and workloads. By being able to see all of your tasks, you can also see who's working on what and where you might want to shift workloads. This becomes important when you think about if you're collaborating with others, particularly for family history research or for like family reunion planning. You might want to balance the loads depending on what people's strengths are. So Kanban is typically shown in a board style. So you have your to-do column, your in-progress column, and your done column. Now these are columns that are set at a minimum. You don't have to necessarily have these 3 different statuses. You could create more or you can create less, depending on what your style is. Here in each of my columns, I do have these little cards, which are my task, and I typically set them up as action items. So for example, in to do, I have call local pastor of the specific church about its history. In my in progress section, I have identify some occupations for this person's parents. And in my done section, I have identified military unit for this person. So as each of these cards move through their different statuses, I can physically move them through each column to identify that status. Now this becomes really powerful when you think about adding more information to these cards. So if I add due dates, I can see, okay, these are the items that are going to be due in July, this is going to be due in June, and this was due in April, and it's great because I've finished this item. When you assign people, you get even more information. So I can see what my workload is like based on my tasks that are in different statuses. So I have a task that's assigned to myself that's in the to-do column. I have a task assigned to myself that's currently in progress. From this, I might see, oh, okay, maybe I need to take one of my tasks and give it to Cousin Wilbur because he's already finished his to-do item. When you think about project management as it applies to family history research, you want to reflect and think about what your current system for organizing your research task is. Do you use sticky notes, stacks of papers, notebooks, a planner, calendar? Do you not really have a system? If you do have a system, you want to think about what is currently working for you. And if you need something to help augment what you're already doing, to improve upon what you're already doing. You also want to think about, if you research solo, what is your working style? Do you like to have everything planned out to the T before you start researching? Or do you kind of just go with the flow and just go based off of one particular record that catches your eye? If you're working with relatives, you want to think about their working styles. How do they work? And how can you collaborate better to accommodate those working styles? Managing your family history research is important because it helps you identify your research goals and actively work towards them. So instead of getting distracted by some new collection that Family Search has put online or some new record that you found, you're very focused. You have your research goals defined and you know exactly what you're aiming for. It helps you keep track of verified information as well. You don't want to keep going over the same documents over and over and over again. By laying out what your goals are and what you've already done, you can prevent yourself from doing duplicate work. Managing your research also helps put you in a better position to disseminate your research. Because if everything you have is already organized, then you'll be able to deliver better products. So whether you're working on a family documentary, or a book, or a blog, or a website, because you have everything organized, you know exactly what you can use to create those products. And we also always hope that all of these things will help engage relatives. If you're working with relatives and you have all of this information organized, it'll be beneficial in that way because they see that progress is being made. If you're not working with relatives, it may also engage them because since your research is organized and you're able to deliver better products, they'll come to expect that same quality of products from you. And that will hopefully get them more excited. Now, Trello has several different features that we can use. As I mentioned before, Trello consists of cards, lists, and boards. Cards are your to-do items. They detail your research task. Lists organize your task by status. So, to do, in progress, and done. Boards are basically your canvas, and that is where you have all of the information about a specific project. Now, there are a couple of different ways that I can imagine a family historian or a genealogist could use a board in Trello. You could do it by family, and so everything on that one board is related to that particular family. You could do it by deliverable, like if you're working on a book, that whole board could be dedicated to all of the items that you need to do to create that book. You can also assign cards to collaborators, as I mentioned before. So you can share boards with anyone you're working with, and you can assign them to specific cards. And you can easily see the progress that people are making on those cards. Trello also has this thing called power-ups. Power-ups are basically software integrations that allow Trello to talk to other pieces of software about your data that you're putting into Trello. So for example, you could connect Trello to Google Maps. So if you're putting location data into Trello and you're connected to Google Maps, you can show the Google Map visualization onto Trello. You could also connect Trello to Evernote or a calendar or Google Drive. If you connect it to a calendar, you could basically have your to-do items with all of your due dates, and you could set it up so that it's connected to your own personal calendar. When you log into Trello, this is basically what it looks like for the desktop version of it. This is actually my Trello board for one of my families. As you'll see, you have your 3 columns. So you have your to-do on the left, your doing in the middle, and your done. And these are your task list. Over here on the far left, you have your board name. Lawrence Research is the name that I've chosen. And in each of these lists, you have your cards, which are your to-do items. So this is just further highlighting. So each of these lists are your statuses: to do, doing, and done. When you click on one of these cards, so I clicked on the Verify Ida Rogers Lawrence's Parents card, you get your title of the card here. You get some information about what list it's in. So it's currently in the doing list, which means I'm working on it. You can also create a description. So I think this is really helpful, especially if you have tasks that you're working on for an extended period of time. You can just write a quick blurb to remind yourself about what this task is about. So here I wrote a quick summary to say that I found her parents' names on her death certificate. What else can I find out about her parents? I also have a checklist here. So these are essentially like subtasks or sub-to-do items that I need to accomplish in order to complete this card. There are also additional features here. So you have your members, where you can assign people to this particular card, labels to organize your cards better. Here's the option for the checklist. Here you can set your due dates. Here is the attachment feature where you can add images. And we'll go through the rest of this a little bit later in the demo. So I mentioned before, Trello is free for its basic features. With free, you get unlimited cards. So that's unlimited to-do items. Unlimited list. So those are unlimited statuses and unlimited boards. You also get 1 power-up only. That's the main limitation of the free version of Trello. So for example, if you decided that you wanted to connect Trello to your calendar, that is the only power-up you can use. You can't use the other power-ups like for Evernote or for Google Maps or any of that. With the free version, you can also share 10 team boards. So in Trello, if you're working with other people, you can create a team, and then you can create boards that are associated with that team. So with the free version, you only get 10 boards. You can also use Trello in its mobile app, in the desktop version of it, or in the web browser. So it's not too bad for free. When you go to Trello.com, this is the screen that you get. So if you want to sign up for Trello, what you would do is put in your email address here and click sign up. On the next screen, you would put your email address, whatever username or name that you want, your password, and sign up. As I mentioned before, Trello is more for the technology business sector, so some of the questions that they ask you during sign up might be a little bit strange. For example, here they're asking you what your team is named. You can basically put whatever you want for these options. It doesn't really matter. So here I decided to put Family Historian Research as my team name. Team type, I just chose other because the other options are more business related. If you have relatives who are already willing to work with you and collaborate with you on Trello, you can type in their email address here, and it just invites them to create an account and to join your board for your team. Once you're done filling out whatever field you want to fill out, you click continue. Trello is really going to try to sell you some stuff on one of these last steps. So here it's highlighting this is what you get on the free version of the team piece in Trello. Here on the right is what you get if you pay for the team version of Trello. You definitely don't need to pay for this option to use Trello, so just go ahead and click Start Without Business Class. After that, go ahead and click Get Started. And you'll get a screen like this. At the top here, it does require you to confirm your email in the next 14 days. So once you go to your email, you'll get an email that looks like this. And it'll have your name that you chose, and you just have to click this button that says Verify Your Email. When you finally log into Trello, you'll get this screen, very blank screen, but that's because you don't have any boards set up. So at the top here, you have your personal boards. So this is where you would create any boards that you want to use yourself. At the bottom here, you have your team. So remember, my team name was Family Historian Research. And to create your team boards, you would click Create New Board here. Your teams are also available here on the left if you ever want to view more information about that. So we'll go ahead and get started with the demo. Let me go ahead and change my screen real quick. So to get to Trello, you want to go to Trello.com. Since I already have an account created, I'm going to click Login. And I'll enter in the email address that I used. You'll want to click on this button, Login with Atlassian. Atlassian is the company that owns Trello. They have a suite of a whole bunch of other different products too, and if you use those products, it would basically use the same account that you use for Trello. So I'll go ahead and enter my password and click Login. And then I'll get that screen that you guys saw before. So I have my personal boards here, and my team boards would be located here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new board. Like I said, I highly suggest that with Trello you use boards for like big projects or specific families that you're working on. So in this instance, I'm going to use one of my families. If I wanted to, I could associate this with a particular team. I would just click on this No Team option and choose the team I have available. I'm not going to do that right now. You also have the option to make your boards private or public. Public basically means that anyone on the internet can see this board. So if you were to share the link to the board somewhere, anyone could see it. But only you and the people you've invited to the board would be able to edit it. I personally are on the side of caution, so I'm going to keep mine private, where only me and anyone I invite to the board can see and edit the board. With your Trello boards, you can change the background of them. You can choose any one of these photos here that they have available or any of these colors. If I click on these three dots here, I have even more options that I could choose from. I'm just going to choose one of these, so I'll just choose this one. Looks pretty nice. I'll go ahead and click Create Board. And it will take a minute, but once it eventually pops up, you'll get a screen that looks like this. So I have my background that I chose here. I don't have any lists set up, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Close this menu first. So you just click Add a List and add whatever status is essentially that you want your to-do items, your tasks to have. So I typed in to do here, and you click Add List. Then it automatically pops you over to the right to create another list. So if I wanted to have one that said in progress, I could do that. And then for stuff that's done, I can create another list for that. Like I said, you're not restricted to these 3 columns or lists. you can totally create as many as you want. So if I wanted another one that said like on hold, I could do that. Now, for me, it makes sense to go from left to right in terms of how I use these statuses. So as I'm moving cards, maybe I'll start something in to do and then move it to in progress and then move it to done. If something is on hold, I might want to have it before it's done. So I'm going to click and hold this list and move it to the space I want it to go. So now I have it in the order I like. Next thing that you want to do is make sure that you add your tasks that you're working on. So go ahead and click add a card here. And whenever you do it on whatever list you're clicked on, it will automatically add that card to that particular list. So since I clicked add a card under the to-do list, it's going to add that card automatically to this list. One task that I'm currently working on is find a land record for one of my ancestors. And to add the card, I can either click this button or press the Enter key on my keyboard. It'll automatically prompt you to create another card. You don't have to do that. You can just click on the X button here if you're done. Now, it's great and all to have a task already set up on your list, but what you really want to make sure to do is add more information so it becomes more valuable to you in the future. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the card. I'll add a more detailed description. And then when I'm ready, I'll go ahead and click Save. If I wanted to add additional people to this card, I would click Members, and I would search for their name here. If they were already in Trello, I would be able to quickly find them and add them to this card to assign them. If I want to add a label to add even more details to the card, I can do so by clicking Labels here, and then clicking Create a New Label, typing a name. Now for the label itself, I would highly suggest keeping labels within the same categories. So if you want labels for location, you can do that. Occupation, you can do that as well. Any number of categories that you think would be useful to all of the items in your particular board. So in this instance, I'm going to say that location is pretty helpful for this individual. I know that she was from Franklin, North Carolina. And you can choose whatever color you'd like. For this, I'm just going to choose green. Click Create. And it automatically applies that label here. Now you could create labels for other things such as priority level as well. Like I said, it just kind of depends on how you work and how you want to organize your information. You're by no means restricted to using one label. If I had another label, I would easily be able to add it by clicking this plus symbol here. Now if I want to add a checklist, I would just need to click on this checklist button. You can name the checklist whatever you want. I typically don't just because I already have a name for the card itself, so I just keep it as checklist. You'll get a progress bar at the top here, and this will adjust based on what items you've actually completed from your checklist. So if I add a few items, so I've added 2 checklist items. If I were to complete one of those items, I would just click on this box here. And as you can see, the progress bar automatically updates. If I wanted to add in another checklist item, this bar would update as well. So as you can see, since I have 3 items, it's automatically updated the completion to 33%, since 1 out of the 3 items have been completed. Now if I don't want to add any more, I can just click on this X here. You can also apply due dates. Click on the due date button here, and you can choose whatever date you want. I'm going to say this is due on June 22nd. I can also specify a certain time, so if I wanted to say this is due at 6 p.m., I can also set reminders. So this will send me an email reminder at whatever interval I choose that this card will be due on this date and time. So I'll just say, remind me a day before, and click save. So it puts this due date up here. If I ever need to change this, I can click on the drop-down menu here to do so. You can also add attachments to your cards in Trello. You just click on the attachment button. Click whatever source you have. So if I'm pulling it from Google Drive, I would click Google Drive. If I was pulling it from a particular computer, or like your local computer, you would click your computer. So if I were to do that, so it automatically updates this card with the image that I attached. So I found a real estate conveyance for this individual. And so as you'll notice, at the top of the card, it also adds the image. This is called a cover. So whenever I close this card out, it still shows at the very top here when I'm looking at my board as a whole. This is really helpful, especially if you have images for particular people that you have tasks for. It helps you better understand what tasks are related to what without necessarily having to go into the card itself. So if I click on the card, maybe I don't want to have this cover here. You can definitely remove it. Just click on Remove Cover in this attachment section. And as you can see, it's removed from the top here. And it's removed here. I'm going to click back into the card. There's a couple more things I want to show you guys. This is the option for power-ups, so I'll show you guys that a little bit later. You can move cards if you want to, so you can click Move. You can move them across boards. So if I had another board set up, I would be able to choose that board and move that card to it. You can move them from different lists. So if I wanted to move this to on hold, I could do that. If there were multiple cards in the on hold list, like say there were like 5 of them, and I wanted this one to be in the 3rd position, I could click on this drop down here and click on the number 3. But since I don't have any other cards in that list, I can't do that. I'll go ahead and click Move. If I close out of this card, you'll see it's been moved from the to-do list to the on hold list. You don't have to move cards that way. You can definitely just click and drag on the card and move it to the appropriate section. If I click on the card again, you can also make copies of your cards. So I can click Make Copy. I can change the title if I want, choose what items I actually want to keep, and then choose if I want to copy it to a specific board or to a specific list. So I can click Create Card, and as you can see, I've copied it to the In Progress list. You can also create comments on your cards. This is helpful if you're working with other people, if you want to exchange dialogue regarding progress on this card, what's going on, what you found. That's all fantastic. I don't really work with any people in my family on my research, so I usually use comments as more of a stream of consciousness for myself, so I can understand my thought process as I'm working on these cards. So I might say something like, and then I can click Save. You do have the options to use emojis if you want to. If you're working with others, you can use this @ symbol to mention other people. And if you have an attachment, like an image or PDF or whatever, you can click on this button here to add that. So I'll click Save. A couple of other things. This watch feature here basically sets it so that if you're a watcher of a card, you will get notified anytime changes are made to this card. So since I've created these cards myself and no one else is working on them, I'm not really interested in becoming a watcher. But to do that, you would click on this watch button here, and it'll show this green check mark here. You can also archive cards. What this means is that it will remove the card from your view, and it will house it in this archived box. So you can always bring those cards back if you need to. It's just that it removes it from your screen so you don't have to see it anymore. So if I did that, As you can see over here on the left, it's removed it from my to-do list, but I can easily send it back to the board if I need to, or delete it permanently. So if I click send back to board, it brings it back to that to-do list. So I'll close out of that. Real quick, I'll show you guys how to add power-ups. So you can click on the show menu button here, and power-ups are available here. Once it loads up, you'll see a directory of a bunch of different power-ups that you can use. Now, as a reminder, I am using the free version of Trello, so I'm only able to use one power-up. But if there was one that I liked, I can click Add on that particular power-up. You can also go through these different sections over here on the left to see if there are ones that might be more useful to you. Or you can search for ones just to see if a specific one exists. So I'm going to go ahead and click Add for the map power-up. And now it's told me this board has reached its power-up limit, upgrade, and pay us money so you can get more of them. So I don't really care about that. I'm going to go ahead and click the X out. Now you'll see that this map button has appeared. If I click on it, it'll just show me a basic generic map of a random location. That's because I don't have any locations set up just yet. If I click on this map icon again, it'll close it out. Now to get items to populate on there, I have to add locations on my cards. So for this particular card, I have a location that's associated with it. I do know that there is a particular church that this individual probably went to. To find that location, I would click on this location button that is now available under power-ups. I can search for that location in Google Maps. So if I said Roller Mill Road, I don't remember the exact address, but this is the road that the church is located on. And so as you can see, it does pop up with a location inset here on my card. If I click on it, it will bring me to my map that I recently added as a power-up. When I click on that location marker, it pops up that card, and if I click on that, it pops up the card again for me to view. So that's really helpful, especially if you're thinking about planning a family history research trip. You can already have all of your tasks laid out, and all you need to do is just look at your map to see where you need to go whenever you actually make it to that place. So now I'm going to show you guys how I use Trello for my own personal research. I use the desktop version of Trello. Alright, I'm going to show you guys how I organize my information on my Trello board. So I use the desktop version of Trello, and it basically looks the same as the web version, but I have a couple of different boards here. I only have one family entered into my Trello right now, but I'll go ahead and click on my Lawrence research one. So this is all my research for my Lawrence family. I've got several different cards under each of my different lists here. So I have to do, doing, and done. I'm also experimenting with adding individuals as lists. I think this could be very helpful, especially if you just want to focus in on one particular ancestor. So this is my great-grandfather, and I just have several questions that I want to find answers to. So I've created cards for each of those questions. And as I find more information, like for example, if I find his draft registration, or if I find a census record that indicates whether or not he was in the military, I would add those items to this "was he in the military" card. For my other cards, I do have labels. This one card right here has a label of interview because I need to interview this person. I do have another label that is related to places. And I do have the maps power-up that I showed you before enabled on my Trello account. So all the locations that I need to visit or just otherwise keep track of spatially, I add onto my cards like that. You can also add multiple attachments to your card. So here I do have a snippet of a census record attached, and it's the cover. But I do also have a death certificate for this individual. If I click on any one of these attachments, it will pop up in a larger view. And I can also scroll down if the image is large. For my checklist items, they're usually questions to myself, or they start with action words like verify or find or locate. In the comments, as I mentioned, I usually have comments to myself just to remind myself of where I've been and what I'm doing. For example, here I say to myself, I was able to verify this person's names from her death certificate. And then based on this census, I was able to identify her father's occupation. When items are done, I typically just move them over here to the done list. And if I have checklist items, as you can see, when all of them are completed, this turns green. That's pretty much all I had for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining for the first episode of GenTech. I really hope to see you on the next episode as well, where I'll be talking about MailChimp, which you can use to create family history newsletters.